Why humans love dogs but eat pigs? Imagine walking into a family home. A dog is sleeping comfortably on the couch. Its name is written on a shiny tag hanging from its collar. Photos of it sit on the shelves. Its owner talks to it every day, buys it gifts, worries when it gets sick, and feels genuine happiness when it runs to the door after a long day. To millions of people around the world, a dog is not just an animal, it is family. Now imagine another animal. An animal that can learn quickly. An animal that forms social bonds. An animal that can recognize individuals and solve problems. An animal that experiences fear, stress, and comfort. That animal is a pig. And for most people, it ends up on a dinner plate. At first glance, this seems strange. Humans love animals, humans protect animals. Humans spend billions caring for animals. Yet humans also raise and consume billions of animals every year. How can all of these things be true at the same time? Why does one animal sleep in our homes while another becomes our food? What exactly separates a dog from a pig? Is it intelligence? Is it emotion? Is it biology? Or is the answer hiding somewhere much deeper inside the human mind? Because the more closely we examine this question, the stranger the story becomes. Every day, countless dogs are treated as members of the family. They have birthdays, they have favorite toys. Some even have social media accounts followed by thousands of people. When a dog dies, many owners grieve as if they have lost a close friend. For some, the pain lasts for years. This level of emotional attachment is remarkable. After all, dogs are not humans. They do not speak our language. They do not understand our careers, our ambitions, or our dreams. And yet humans often form incredibly deep bonds with them. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Many of the qualities people admire in dogs can also be found in pigs. Pigs can learn, pigs can remember, pigs can build relationships. Some studies even suggest that pigs can outperform dogs on certain problem-solving tasks. Yet most people never think of pigs the same way they think of dogs. Why? Why do we instinctively feel affection toward one animal and distance toward another? And perhaps an even more uncomfortable question follows. What if the difference has less to do with dogs and pigs, and more to do with us? For many people, pigs occupy a very specific place in the mind. They are farm animals, food animals. Animals raised for consumption. And because of that, most people rarely stop to wonder what pigs are actually like. But here's where the story becomes surprisingly complicated. Pigs are not the simple creatures many people imagine. They can learn commands, navigate obstacles, recognize familiar individuals, and adapt to new situations. They are curious, social, and often far more intelligent than people expect. In some cases, pigs have demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rival those of animals we traditionally admire for their intelligence. The strange part is that none of this information is particularly new. Scientists have been studying animal behavior for decades. Yet knowing these facts rarely changes how most people feel. A pig still feels different from a dog. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If intelligence isn't the answer, then what is? Now imagine a different world. Imagine children growing up with pet pigs instead of pet dogs. Imagine pigs sleeping at the foot of the bed, waiting at the front door. Following families on vacations. Imagine storybooks filled with heroic pigs. Movies celebrating loyal pigs. And social media accounts dedicated to beloved pigs. At the same time, imagine dogs existing mostly on farms, rarely entering homes. How different would our feelings be? Would we still see dogs as family? Would pigs become our closest companions? Or would nothing change at all? The question sounds strange. But perhaps it reveals something important. Maybe the line between pet and food is not as natural as it appears. Maybe that line was drawn long before we were born. And maybe most of us inherited it without ever realizing it. At this point, it may be tempting to think that humans simply make decisions based on logic. If an animal is intelligent, we care about it. If it has emotions, we protect it. If it suffers, we feel empathy. But human psychology is rarely that straightforward. In reality, people often decide how they feel first and explain those feelings later. We like to imagine ourselves as rational creatures. Yet much of human behavior is guided by emotion, habit, familiarity, and culture. Think about it. Most people do not meet a dog and calculate whether it deserves affection. The feeling appears almost instantly. It feels natural, normal, obvious. But what feels obvious today may simply be something learned long ago, from childhood stories, family traditions, social expectations, and countless experiences repeated over years. The human mind is incredibly good at turning familiar ideas into unquestioned truths. And once that happens, we rarely stop to ask why. Which brings us to something psychologists sometimes call a moral blind spot. A blind spot is not something we refuse to see. It is something we do not realize we are missing. Humans naturally focus on certain individuals while overlooking others. We give names to some animals, we learn their personalities, we watch them grow. As soon as that happens, empathy becomes easy. But animals we rarely meet often become something else, not individuals, categories, products, resources. The strange part is that the animals themselves may not have changed at all. Only our perception has changed. And perhaps that is what makes this story so fascinating. The difference between a pet and a food animal may not begin with the animal. It may begin inside the human mind. To understand why humans feel differently about dogs and pigs, we need to travel far back into the past. Long before cities, long before farms. Long before civilization itself. For thousands of years, dogs and humans lived side by side. Dogs helped track prey, warned of danger, protected camps, and offered companionship in a world that was often harsh and unpredictable. Over generations, a unique relationship emerged. Humans benefited from dogs, dogs benefited from humans. Together they became something neither species had been before, partners. In many ways, dogs did not simply live alongside humans. They helped shape human history. Pigs followed a different paths. As agriculture spread, pigs became valuable sources of food. They were not usually bred to guard camps or assist hunters. Their role in human society was different from the beginning. Over time, these different relationships may have influenced how humans viewed each animal. One became associated with companionship, the other with consumption. But before we assume the mystery is solved, there is another piece of the story. Because history alone cannot explain everything. Across the world, different cultures have often viewed animals in completely different ways. Some cultures have treated cows as sacred. Others have raised them primarily for food. Some societies have eaten animals that others would never consider eating. And some animals considered companions in one place have been viewed very differently elsewhere. This suggests something fascinating. The line between friend and food is not fixed. It is not written into nature. It can shift across time, geography, and culture. Which means our relationship with animals may be shaped by more than biology. It may also be shaped by stories, traditions, beliefs, and the invisible rules we inherit from the people around us. Rules that often feel natural, simply because we have never known anything else. At first, this seemed like a story about dogs and pigs, a story about pets and food, a story about animals. But perhaps something much deeper has been hiding beneath the surface the entire time. Because the more closely we examine this question, the more it begins to reveal something about ourselves. Humans have a remarkable ability. We can form deep emotional bonds. We can care for vulnerable creatures. We can feel compassion for animals we have never even met. Yet at the same time, we can mentally separate ourselves from other animals entirely, not because we are cruel, but because the human mind is constantly simplifying an incredibly complicated world. Every day we place things into categories: friend or stranger, safe or dangerous, us or them, family or food. Without these mental shortcuts, navigating the world would be overwhelming. The strange contradiction is that these same shortcuts that help us understand reality can also hide parts of reality from us. And perhaps nowhere is that more visible than in our relationship with animals. Because in the end, the most interesting question may not be why humans love dogs but eat pigs. The more interesting question may be why humans draw lines at all. Why do some lives feel close to us while others feel distant? Why do some creatures become individuals while others become categories? And how many of those boundaries are natural, and how many were inherited? Perhaps there is no simple answer, perhaps there never was. But maybe that uncertainty is what makes the question worth asking. Because this story was never really about dogs. And it was never really about pigs, it was about the human mind. A mind capable of extraordinary empathy. A mind capable of looking at the same world in completely different ways. And a mind that is still trying to understand itself. The next time you see a dog sleeping peacefully beside its owner, or a pig standing quietly behind a fence, you may find yourself wondering about something much larger than either animal, not what they are, but what our relationship with them reveals about us. And perhaps that is the strangest part of all. The animals were never the mystery. The mystery was always human nature.